weekly way. Oh, I can't spend the nose. The weekly way. Oh, can you tell me home? The weekly way. Did you see it? The weekly way. I'm glad you stopped by. Take him to him, baby.
There's your clap.
Are we smoking Priuses right now?
We are.
Are we
dude.
burning hybrids?
Dude, let's do it, bro.
Listen, when you put those batteries in the trash,
you put them in the ocean. That's where car batteries go.
Yes. Why does it float? I don't know. For fuck's sake, we're not trying to do the math out here.
Yeah,
We're
I'm
just
not a
trying.
scientist.
I've seen the Titanic enough times to know what I'm getting on. Okay, Tesla battery first call. Well, thanks for allowing the easiest crossover episode of all time. To not have to set up any shit for this is such a relief because it normally goes horribly bad.
That's what I'm here for. And it's nice to meet you in real life, actually, instead of just watching you interview my friends.
And I think that's a good way to get to know somebody because it's like through the filter of your friends, you can find out whether they have a filter or not, whether they compute at a high level or not. I can tell that you might have a stutter when you get nervous, and I'm trying to get there today. You know?
No, actually, I think, I don't know. I wouldn't go that far. I think I'm usually just it's more about like, I guess it would be a form of nervous energy, but it's excitement usually.
Yeah.
And I'm having the problem more where I'm like, I have a billion things to say right now, and all of them have to come out of my mouth, and my mouth is slower than my brain is, right? Kind of a thing. So
I definitely get in the habit of if something's trying to come out in full form and I'm overthinking it, I'm a vomit all over the place. I'm also a championship puker. Okay.
Dude, I was wondering what CP meant on your resume. Championship puker. That's so crazy.
Well, if I'm out, I haven't been drinking for the last eight months or so. But if I'm out with the wife drinking and I notice that I'm not in a good place, I'll pull trig like a champ, and she won't even know about it.
I love that.
And
I pull trig.
Yeah, pull trig. Pull trig.
That's a great. I was like the Technicolor yawn.
Yeah, I can Mike Tyson my uvula in a way that most people wouldn't imagine.
That's
I know
amazing.
That following the fight,
you're going to show its ass at the end of the interview.
Listen, it wasn't officially a G-string, but it should have been if we really wanted to get the views. Like,
I mean, look, as part of the Illuminati humiliation ritual that he was performing.
Holy shit. It's a good point to make, dude. And I think at the end of the day, if you're going to launch an OnlyFans, you need to have that in the script somewhere. Yeah. Don't show it all, but show enough. It's a big part of the game.
It's a teaser. You want to get... It's not about the first month subscription. It's about the renew subscription.
Yeah. Speaking of entry-level pornography, didn't you do an Allstate commercial? Isn't that what...
Nationwide, actually. I thought you were going to ask about we did an OnlyFans a couple Christmases ago.
Good for you.
Yeah. Well, I thought it was hilarious. One of my buddies, a photographer, Shay Nartkurt, and he... it was really funny. We were like, wouldn't it be hilarious if we did a Santa boudoir shoot? I was
my.
Yeah, it would be hilarious. Yeah. So for the cool $15 I made off of that.
Yeah.
I don't remember where we were going with that, but it was fun.
And the bizarre amount of hard copies I still have in the closet somewhere.
You have them in the closet. You should see mine. It's great. It's like a shrine.
Stocking stuffers have nothing on stocking stickers. Okay?
I'm out here trying to stuff the stocking. You feel me? I'm coming down your chimney.
Whoa. That's awesome.
Yeah, maybe up too.
Dude, if you got that kind of leverage, I mean, you really got to be pent up for that kind of moment. But I did see Ron Jeremy in the frozen food section. And also, so you have unmarked cars in the policing world. There's unmarked workers here unboxing cheese. I gotta see this guy wearing a fucking vest if I'm gonna feel comfortable.
Listen, after he got in trouble because he did some bad stuff, Ron Jeremy, and we were one of the only places that were still willing to hire him because, Jungle knew he could keep him in line.
Bango.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I think we sell hedgehogs here.
There's a lot of jobs that have recently dropped the felony questionnaire, and I think that's probably for the better. People need a second chance.
Realistically, I wonder if we even had that here. One of the cool things about we're here at Jungle. I'm speaking as Mark, not as Mark the Jungle employee, to be clear for everybody watching. But yeah, I mean, they're like not lax in a bad way, but like a very accepting and welcoming environment, which is surprising to me in the workplace because,
I think at the end of the day, you can't let that kind of title lead someone's future because it only goes one direction if you make that the only deciding factor.
Right. And how are they going to be in a boy band like One Direction?
Dude, I think if you're going to have the X Factor really exist, you're going to need folks that have questionable records. And I'm not just talking about grades, okay? I know most of these kids failed. And that's understandable. Harry Styles does not seem like a smart kid.
Harry Styles seems like the type of guy who thinks he's the first dude to ever wear a dress. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, and I think when you look back at those Nirvana shoots, even those guys knew, like, it's not punk to do this, it's punk to like it, okay? And that's why they didn't show their smiles on the air. They kept it to themselves.
Yeah.
TBD. So your background is strictly in comedy, or where does your artistic endeavors really begin?
You know what's funny is, like, I just loved comedy. Like, as a kid, I'm trying to think. Because, I grew up I'm old now, and I grew up in the VHS tape era. So it was like a lot of like all of the culture and media that I took in was really like, what can I get? Oh, is HBO having a free weekend? Guess who's about to discover George Carlin at 7?
Nice.
Do you know what I'm saying? And so like I just dove really into that. And then what's even more funny is like I got online. I think for me, it was more about like, I think about how I worked in the mall and I sold cell phones before everybody had smartphones.
No.
So I was like one of the early people to have a smartphone. And so when everyone was like first on Facebook and they're like, here's a picture of a cat or here's a text description of a cat, right? Because people weren't posting like that.
Yeah.
I'm in the mall just like, look at this freak and posting it. And I
working
think,
a kiosk and just humiliating mall walkers.
Honestly, yeah, seriously.
New Balances look good on you, Betty bitch. Ooh.
Exactly. You already know, dude. There's one lady that I always forgot. I always think about that. And my managers were good enough to like let me document because you'd see interesting characters all the time and you're in a public space and no judgment really. Yeah. It's always from I can't believe I just saw this kind of a thing. Yeah. That's a choice type energy, right?
What was the mall?
Kenwood Mall.
Cool. The good for you.
The only operating in the black mall in the world, They're like, seriously, the only profitable mall, I think, left.
Yeah, it's incredible to see how everything else is falling apart around it. Like, I was a big Tri-County fan as a kid.
All right, and a real one.
And then I found out that the only thing I could get there was throwing stars and a good stabbing. You know what I'm saying? Like, it's a dangerous place to be.
Which is crazy because you had the throwing stars first, and I kind of held you in higher regard than that.
But I don't have the aim. Okay, my brother first bought these as soon as he turned 18. So I'm 11. I'm holding a throwing star. And I'm going at a pizza box. And at the end of the day, I can't hit the pizza box. So if I want to go back and get my own throwing stars to practice, I need to fight off 50, 60 guys. They're probably going to stab me close range.
And they're Springdale residents too, so they're extra tough, dude. I see it out there. I go to the boba shops. Okay,
dude. Okay.
I don't really know what's over there. Like the last time I was there, I was like, I went and got boba. I was like, okay, that's good enough. Go back to the comedy thing. I only got into doing stand-up myself right before the pandemic.
Really?
And I always wanted to do, you know what it is? I think a lot of art scenes in Cincinnati, at least when I was coming up, right? Like when I was doing music, because I did music. That was really my first true love. And then
what'd you play?
Guitar a little bit. I mostly sang.
Okay.
And so I've got a couple of them on the wall, actually.
Yeah. You have some beautiful stuff on the wall.
Thank you. I appreciate that. A lot of it's ham, which is weird, but no. And music was my first love. And when that dried up, I was like, well, what else can I do? And I was like, I always thought I was a funny person, and I loved stand-up comedy and really respected the art form. So I used to just go to comedy shows all the time.
Yeah.
And yeah, it was just, I joke that I caught the wave of like whatever you'd call internet comedians, where it was just like shit posting before shit posting was a thing. And I think that helped build me an audience. And then I love comedy so much. I'm hosting a show in December.
Very nice.
At the Element Eatery.
Very nice.
It's on MedPace's campus.
A bizarre place for a comedy show, but I respect it.
They have a cool setup. They do a lot of like music and other shows like that. And so one of the managers there reached out to me and this comedian, Adam Minnick, that I really met through our mutual friend Tyler Carson.
Beautiful.
And we're doing that. So so you asked, I'm sorry to make this the most rambling, meandering answer, but
you move quick and I respect that.
Yeah,
okay.
I got a lot to say in a short amount of time to say.
I'm the one trying to kill a cold brew over here, and I don't even know what you're drinking, but it doesn't seem
you not know about not beer yet?
No, I'm unfamiliar.
Oh my God. So not beer is just sparkling water.
And it just looks like a Budweiser.
Exactly. Is that great? So it's like a competitor to Liquid Death. So this is for those of you who are like afraid of the cool marketing. Well, this is just cool marketing in a different way, right? This is like when I get cigarette memes and I'm like, I love cigarette memes. This feels like I would smoke a cigarette with this one.
Yeah.
Probably not with Liquid Death. Liquid Death feels more like I don't even know. I don't know what the drug of choice would be with that.
As someone that's not drinking right now, I enjoy the odd edge that comes along with liquid death. Like drinking one of those in front of my mother-in-law at least makes me feel tougher than drinking like a Dasani bullshit. You know what I'm saying?
And Dasani fucking sucks, dude.
Yeah, and you drink it on the beach, and it's like it's mainly small plastic particles. It's like I could eat a Barbie and get the same effect, and that sounds way more festive.
I prefer macroplastics to microplastics. If
You're
I'm
a real
being honest
man. I
with
can
you.
respect what you're going on with.
You should see how much I'm carrying around.
When Adam Levine first came on the scene with whatever that face wash was, I was like, I should just straight ingest this. Why would I put it on my
Why
pores?
not? Yeah, he's like, it's got microbeads in it. Also, look at my bad tattoos. My first podcast ever I did was this bad advice show called Question Mark, and the first episode was called Beef with Adam Levine, because I always said that if there was any celebrity I thought, like a modern celebrity that I'd have beef with, it would be Adam Levine. Because there's just something about him that I feel like he wouldn't be funny about this joke.
Yeah.
Right? And if I get successful enough that he gets to hear this, I'm fucking coming for you, Adam Levine.
That's
all right?
I'm going to make sure this clip circulates, and we're going to hit him. Hit him hard.
I'll see you on Sunday morning, or whatever that song was called.
And
I don't remember Maroon 5
roll
shit.
the proactive commercials.
Oh.
Sunday morning, rain is falling. That's a wedding band classic.
Oh my God, yeah.
Boys, it's okay in all 12 keys. It's really impressive.
Exactly.
Yeah. So making the transition from a young musician, I don't give a shit. Let's have a good time.
Let's go, dude. Fuck it.
If you
I'm
have
drinking
any
sparkling water, we're getting fucked up, dude.
any other beefs you need to air, I'm your guy for it. Okay, let's put that
It's
big.
mostly Adam Levine. You know who guess well, you don't even have to guess. A classic rock star that I had beef with at 13.
Chad Kroger,
No, more old school. Like think like 70s, 80s.
Steven Tyler. Gotta help.
You're getting closer. I'll just tell you, it's Tom Petty. Or
No.
was Tom Petty. Yeah.
No,
I have the
how?
autograph. When we're done, I'll show you my autograph book. You'll be blown away by pictures I'm with.
And it's like a dissenting autograph. Like he didn't like you.
Dude, it's like one of the it's such a crazy story. I don't want to tell it on the show because people will think I'm full of shit, and then you'll have to go, Mark showed me the evidence. It's real as fuck, dude.
And I'll just misinterpret your story the entire
It's
way.
great.
No.
Anyway, Tom Petty was not nice to a 13-year-old Mark Borison in a tuxedo at an event where I was like the only not famous person there. So fuck Tom Petty on record.
Whoa.
Yeah, I was like, dude, your music's not good enough for you to be this much of a prick, in my opinion, in my humble opinion.
Kid Rock has an awesome interview where he talks about meeting Tom Petty. He's like, okay, he's playing in Detroit one night and he needs pots, so they call me to deliver it to him.
Of course.
It's great to be a plug
I still call Kid Rock for
dude.
that.
And Kid Rock's like, I don't even like smoking weed these days. I just brown the weed. He goes, so I'm going to meet one of my heroes. I'm super excited about this. And I get there, and he's too stoned to want to hang out. So I just kind of like left in shame. I'm like, that's exactly what I want from Tom Petty. Like, you don't need to be everyone's rock star. You just need to write the hits to get by with it. And
That's
he
a good
did
point.
that.
It was just one of those weird things where I was like, this feels like an event. Like, as a kid at an event where all of the adults are both famous and very wealthy.
Yeah.
And I just remember thinking, like, in hindsight, I was like, I could have been like someone who writes his paychecks kid. Dude. And he was like, yeah, go fuck yourself, kind of. I'm like, holy shit, dude. This is a story that I've harbored for 30 years almost now.
And I like that you won't release it to the public. I'm really looking forward.
I'll tell you the whole thing off air for real. It's a thing I've told it sometimes before, but it's one of those stories that it's so insane that without seeing the autograph. Okay, so I'll tell you where it happened. It was at the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame induction ceremonies.
Nice.
I got to go twice. I went once when I was 13, once when I was 15. Now, this is the 90s.
Have a privileged life as a young man.
Dude, it was crazy.
Was that the one where they did While My Guitar Gently Weeps? Were you at that?
I wish that was at that.
Dude,
That would have been
that was
insane.
the craziest shit that anyone's ever seen.
Dude, the first year I went, the people getting inducted were insane. It was the Jackson 5, it was the Bee Gees, it was Crosby, Stills, and Nash. And mind you, I met all of these people with the exception of Michael Jackson.
Yeah.
Who did show up for like a split second and like one of the craziest things I've ever seen in my life. Anyway, the long and short of it,
Bunch
I
of
got to go
monkeys
twice.
hop out of a
But this
limousine,
is
then
the
he walks out.
What's that?
A bunch of monkeys hop out of a limousine, then
That
he
would have been
walks out.
so sick, honestly, dude. It's like one of those only moments in my life that felt like a scene from a movie. So they hold these in like a big ballroom. The first time I went, it was the only time they've ever actually held it in Cleveland. Normally it's in New York City. So the second time I went was in New York City, but. You're in this big room, and I'd say, to give you an example, like he was probably as far as, well, Connie's putting out flowers right now. Yeah. That's about where he walked. Imagine that's like the edge of the ballroom door. And we're talking, and I just remember my dad and I, we're chatting he's like talking to Diana Ross because she's there with Alan Thicke and who's the kid? Robin Thicke, his son. So like they were all, but like Robin Thicke wasn't famous yet, but I imagine they were just, anyway.
Yeah. It's weird to think how easy you can access fame if you're in that position.
It's
I mean,
really crazy.
Your stepmom is kind of Diana Ross. Like, what the fuck kind of a hand
Dude,
is
it was
that?
like a crazy, and I was like old enough. I've always been a big music fan and like pretty well versed in that. Dude, you're gonna laugh when you see some of these things. Like Quincy Jones died the other day, and I was like, I got his autograph. I remember meeting talking him, and he was like,
You
how do
shouldn't
you know
smile
who I
when he
am?
said Quincy Jones died the other day.
Yeah, exactly. I was like,
Gotcha,
gotcha, Quincy.
And autographs really
Who's mad now?
all the autographs are kind of falling out of popularity. People don't really care about autographs anymore. It's like that was a stature point. Like I remember
we didn't have cameras on us all the time.
Yeah.
Well, that was a big part of the story, by the way, is that so the first year I went, I was just getting autographs, and I brought a disposable camera with me, and I only got one picture, and it's me and Steven Van Zandt, who was there for whatever reason, right? And I'm like 13, I look stoned as hell in the picture.
Yeah.
It's the only photo I got because, you know, to describe people, you had the indicator of how many photos were left on the reels back then. They were not standardized. So some would be like 28, and that would either mean you had 28 pictures to go, or this was your 28th picture, and you only have one photo, and it's of you and Steve Van Zandt.
Yes.
All right. So the second time I went, I was like, there's no fucking way I'm missing this. So the second time I was all cameras, and again, even more famous people that were willing to waste their time with that then 15-year-old Mark.
Why were your parents invited to this? Why was your dad going?
My dad did like commercial real estate stuff, and pretty much
It's not a good answer.
Well,
Sells warehouses, duh.
Yeah, no, right. Well, he did like funny enough. So like Kenwood Mall. A big reason we're here is because in Cincinnati we moved here because he was doing like corporate real estate development for. They were Federated at the time, but I think they now just go by Macy's. So it was
Gotcha.
like all their department stores, but like he would do the deals for that. So it was
That
cool.
is wild.
It was cool. He was just an interesting guy, and he and I are very similar in a lot of regards. I would joke he's infinitely more financially successful, but we have like a lot of similar temperament.
Sounds like a different path, you know?
Yeah, it is for sure. But
This
it's like
doesn't
that
have a
funny thing where I was like,
commission
oh, I think a lot of it was just like, you know, he grew up in a different time, and he listened to his parents. I just kind of, I did in like nice way,
Yeah.
but like when it came to my dreams and my career, I was like, I'm just gonna do whatever I think is the right thing.
Yeah, it's time
You
to
know?
grip and rip it. Let's have a good time.
And they were mostly supportive, like never in a bad way, but they were definitely those parents who were like, hey, just in case it doesn't pan out, maybe like get an actual job. So I did both for a long time. But
Nice.
anyway, he helped a bunch of guys on the Hall of Fame board. This is my 13-year-old understanding of it, by the way, and
Yeah.
I haven't bothered to ask for updates.
I can understand why.
Yeah, I was like, I don't really give a
The
shit.
dream
I
is
was
the
just
dream.
like, oh, so it's like everything else now, and I've learned a lot here in that regard. It's like everything's a handshake deal in life, pretty much.
Yeah.
So pretty much that's what happened. Is my understanding is he helped make these guys a lot of money on a deal they did, and they were like, hey, he's also Mark Borison. They're like, hey, Mark, we'd love to have you at our event. And so I was benefiting because my parents were divorcing. I was like, hell yeah, mom's not the plus one anymore, baby. Sorry, mom, love you, but
Yeah.
I got to go hang out with Bono. You know,
What a crazy thing to have your kid like come home for the weekend and it's like, guess who's plus one I was this week? Me and Mr. Van Zandt.
dude, it was funny too because like, you know, you're in high school. And I joked, I didn't have like a bad high school experience, but it was like enough that like nobody believed you.
Yeah.
And I'm sitting there like, oh, here's the Bee Gees autographs. Here's like the Jackson family, that kind of shit. And they're just sort of like, okay, Mark. So then I was just like, if I ever get to go back, I'm bringing a goddamn camera. So when I went back when I was 15, I brought a camera. People still didn't believe. So you imagine that, because you had to get photos developed.
Yes.
A week after I got home, I'm like, all right, assholes.
Yeah,
Yeah, that's me and Eric Clapton.
Losing
dude.
your shit at
Yeah.
Walgreens because it's like my street rep depends on this. Develop it.
Well, imagine that too, because you had like customer service employees who you knew looked through the photos. So when I got back, they were just like, who are you?
Yeah.
You know, because I'm a child picking up photos in Kenwood of like me. There's me and Eric Clapton. There's me and Jimmy Page. Like all these people, you're like,
Yeah.
where the fuck were you? I was like, in a hotel lobby, you know? Crazy. So anyway,
Kinda
fuck
sus.
Tom Petty.
A good wrap up there. I had a friend that would always go to like the Nickelodeon Awards every year because like an uncle. So he would flip autographs for kids. And sometimes I believe, I don't know this for sure, I think he was making photocopies and selling them twice.
Genius.
As any kid in the entrepreneurial field would.
Shit, I would have scanned it digitally and sold them on a floppy disk, right?
Dude,
That's
that-
how old I am.
Can you imagine a signed floppy disk of a signature though?
He's so sick, dude. Sign the floppy, and on the copy, there's a digital backup too.
God damn, that shit's got me stiff for a floppy. You know what I'm saying?
Dude, I know. Dude, all 3 1/4 inches or whatever size they were.
Let's get Ron Jeremy in here.
Yeah.
Talk about a handshake deal that made you some money.
He's coming in.
dude, clap, and he just comes in.
And it's just Jungle in a Ron Jeremy costume. That'd be
my
so
God.
sick.
What would a Ron Jeremy costume look like? A
A
handlebar
shitty mustache
Yeah.
and receding hairline, you know?
It's pretty much a Hulk Hogan outfit for a short king.
It's just like it's like dark mode of, you know what I mean? You're like, hit the switch.
Dude,
Yeah.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
What's the evil Spider-Man?
Oh yeah, like Venom, right?
Yeah, exactly.
That is hilarious. Oh my gosh.
Tag team champs Ron Jeremy and Hulk Hogan.
I would say that it's like if Hulk Hogan put the mask on, but I feel like you get slightly more handsome if you get the mask, and they're both ugly.
Do you remember the books where the animal would turn into a person?
Oh yeah, Animorphs, right?
You could do that with Ron Jeremy to Hollywood Hogan to regular Hulk Hogan.
That would be so funny. Yeah, because he had the blended. Like,
yes, dude. Could you imagine dying that and being like, it's not going to come back the same? He's like, I ain't worried about brother.
Yeah, listen, I'm gonna. Oh my God.
So were you writing songs as a young musician?
Ish. Like I tried a little bit in high school and we weren't very good at it. I didn't have much excuse me.
Mouth queef. That's what
I know,
we call
right?
that.
It happens all the time. It's that not beer. It hit me. I'm always drinking something sparkling and I'm like, oh, is this going to happen? But anyway, when we were in high school, we were bad at it. But I tried really hard. I didn't have a lot of traditional training until like around the time I started trying to do it. And so it was like, I felt like I picked up so much after the fact. And then in my early 20s, I was writing a lot of music. And I played in like someone else's band, which was it was fun. And then after that, once I did my own thing, my last full release was 2008. Yeah. But it was just a little EP we did, and it went really well. It was very successful for us, and then the band broke up, and I was like, all right.
And did you never venture into the singer-songwriter category to do solo stuff?
I did a little bit, actually, and I was doing gigs, but like back then, this would have been like 2008, 2009. Going back to, I was making my comments earlier about how like a lot of the art scenes here in town are kind of a little closed off, at least when I was first coming up. I think things are getting better.
But it is bizarrely sectionalized, and sometimes it's neighborhood, sometimes it's genre-based, and I think that's kind of one of the recurring themes of this show is talking about the uphill battle that it is for Cincinnati to find a musical identity that's shared and people feel like they have some ownership in it. It's the reason that Seattle grunge becomes a thing is because the people of Seattle loved that music.
Right.
So by the time it takes everyone. Yeah.
I think that's something, since in my opinion, so I'm not from here originally, so I think about like the other places I've lived, and then when I go back and I connect with people and all that stuff, and you're like, oh, it is kind of different in other cities. But I feel like we get weirdly closed off in certain regards, and it's a strange thing. It's kind of why I don't do stand-up, because I just don't really feel welcomed, realistically. Like, don't get me wrong, that I know that clip will sound bad, but like, a lot of them are very nice, right? But I joke in life, I always get the nice version of the person, and then it's when they walk away, they're like, fuck that guy kind of energy, right?
Well, I think that's the path of least resistance is to cause friction with the people you bumped into. And that's really unfortunate. It's like, I know I've been guilty of it myself.
Yeah, we all are,
but
by
I
the
think,
way.
When it comes to someone like yourself, that's kind of multi-medium entertainment, that's a harder person to put in a box. And we all like to compartmentalize folks, so it's easier for us to move on with our own path, rather than seeing all the ways that you plugged yourself in should be an inspiration to people and how they can reapply the same skill set that's taken you from being a songwriter to how did that kind of relate to your comedy career and starting to write that material initially?
As soon as you asked that, I know shit. Somebody just walked by in what I can only describe as a banana costume. But I think it was just like the Gordon's Fisherman's yellow thing. But I'm like listening like, oh, banana costume. Jesus Christ.
Dude, having this kind of window view of a grocery store is detrimental to someone's mental health.
It is so funny.
Yeah, it seems like how you get by in a day, though.
Yes. Oh, for sure. Absolutely. Yeah. I'm sorry to derail there.
No, you're fine. You were asking, how did songwriting relate to your early comedy career and trying to convey concepts into art?
I think for me, it was like, look, in music, I was very, and this happens a lot in my career. I'm really like focused on the end goal, right? So with music, I was like, how do you get successful in this industry that I already thought was going to a weird place, right? Because this is like in the beginning of iTunes really starting to take over. So albums are slowly starting to shift in sales. I mean, we'd already seen it in the 2000s and all that stuff. So I was really looking at it, and I joked with the band all the time. I'm like, guys, this is like maybe our last chance to get rich easy. And like bands were still making a shit ton of money.
Yeah.
And so I had my interests, and one of the things that I always wanted to do was like take my interests and repackage the things I loved to that people, if I was like, listen, man, this is why David Lee Roth is the greatest frontman ever. This is why the first 6 Van Halen, all right, they don't give a fuck. They're just like, I know Jump, shut the fuck up, it gets played at the grocery store.
Yeah.
And I'm sitting there going, okay, how do I take these things that I love, that I know are great, and then package them for someone else in a more accessible format maybe, and a blend of all of my interests. So like, that was my first goal in writing music. And so I viewed it a lot as like a combination of me. I mean, as honest as I can be, was I wanted to be financially successful with it. And I was like, okay, there's a lot of aspects to this. So
have you ever like unpacked that marker of success? Like, do you think that starts at a young age of seeing, all right, my dad does well in this particular line of work, but when you meet up with these celebrities, when you're going to an event like this, and the fame and fortune has more to do with the fortune because all these folks are coming up and shaking a hand saying, this is what really made it for me. Fuck the number ones. I don't really care about that.
That's a good point too. Yeah. I don't think that connected with me until I was much older, because I think at the time I was just like, I was so focused. Look, I was handicapped. I've dealt with a disability my whole life. I was like, I wasn't a cool kid until much later in life.
Yeah.
And it was one of those things where I was just around all these really fucking cool people.
Yeah. What was your handicap?
I had Guillain-Barré when I was 4 years old, so I was fully paralyzed.
My dad had Guillain-Barré.
No shit, are you serious?
My
That's
dad,
crazy.
Right when my mom became pregnant with me, my dad got Guillain-Barré and went paralyzed from the neck down.
Yep.
He's made pretty much a full recovery. I would love to introduce you to talk about that.
Dude, we should definitely do that. That'll be a follow-up episode for real.
Yeah.
I still have drop foot pretty bad, and I normally wear like AFO braces to help me walk for the most part.
Yeah.
Which I broke, and then I think was part of the reason I got so hurt this
Pimps can't be held back, man. I mean, that's why they got the cane, you know? You just got
It's so bad. I'm just always like, can I bring a cane places? Are people going to be weird about it? And then realistically, no.
But that's one of those really rare situations that people don't understand what that ailment necessarily is and how that affects you later in life.
It glowed up and during COVID because people were getting it with COVID. And I'm like, oh shit, finally I don't have to keep describing what this is for the last 37 years. You know?
Well, it brings about a certain hesitancy towards other pharmacological solutions that people might look at you funny for saying that I have a preconceived notion of what this can do to me. But, you know, as someone that has a family history of that, it's like there's a variety of things I have to look out for that it's never really affected me in my adult life.
And it might not.
Yeah, my wife is a nurse, though. So we've kind of talked more. She used to be a nurse. She actually just left the field. Thank God. That shit sucks. Oh, my God. That's the most ridiculous.
It seems like the worst.
Now, on weeknights where she has work, we can be human beings towards each other versus just like, all right, I'll put you to bed and don't tell me about what happened today.
Yeah, exactly.
Actually, if it was an okay enough day, she'd wait till I'm about to go to sleep to be like, so putting this camera in this guy's ass, right? And I'm like, honey, please stop. It's like, I'm trying to go to bed right now.
That's so weird. I did the same thing, though.
Dude, she's like, someone tried to pretend that they did the enema today, and they didn't. And we're going to find out.
Right.
Isn't that amazing to think that you're about to put pretty much a GoPro inside somebody's ass, and they're going to lie to you about cleaning that thing?
That's crazy. And this is a great time to mention today's show sponsor, Tushy Bidets. Go to hellotushy.com and use promo code TheMark for 10% off your order.
Do you actually have a...
The code actually was, I don't know if the code still works or not, but I did something with them in like 2019 and 2020. I celebrated my 5-year anniversary with mine, and... You know, it's the cleanest asshole in the Midwest.
I mean, talk about a way to get eaten up, you know? it's a pretty lucky place to be, man. Sponsors are a hard part of the podcast game, and people don't understand that, like, compared to a Nationwide commercial, compared to a Pepsi commercial, this is going to be incredibly playful. It may not feel like I'm giving you a plug, but anytime your name comes on here, I am expecting a mailbox money.
Of course,
you know?
You know what the royalty checks look like. It's like a tenth of a penny, and you're like, hell yeah, dude, got that. Yeah.
Well, streaming's the same way, and I think one thing that a lot of artists forget about compared to a David Lee Roth and talking about financial goals are not the only way you quantify success, but if it's not a marker on there, you will not be successful.
Right. It has to be part of the game, I think. And I think one of the things that always really drove me crazy about like other artists was that they all, in my opinion, they all lie about like, I'm just in it for the art. And I'm like, no, you're not. Otherwise, you wouldn't be expecting to earn from this. So I'm like, I am always frustrated. I feel like I'm perpetually frustrated with this weird, like, hypocritical viewpoint of it because I agree with you.
Yeah.
Obviously, there was an artistic output for me. Like I said, I wanted to share the things I loved with you in a way that I thought you might like more than if I just gave you the albums that inspired me. Do you know what I'm saying?
If you were stuck with the smartphone mall kiosk, you could have been a multi-trillionaire by this point in time. I mean,
I really, weirdly enough, that was one of the better, at first, that was like one of the better paying jobs I've had in my life.
It's cutting edge. And if it's commission based, boy, can you fucking take it to the next level.
It was great.
Man.
I mean, like the hourly, I'm thinking about it now. It's like, that was like 15 years ago, and the hourly was pretty high.
Yeah.
And then the commission on top of it. I mean, I was like in my mid 20s, like, I have too much money right now,
Yeah.
and I hang out at the mall. It was a weird time.
Dude,
Especially to find
if
out
you
by
have
the-
the personality for it,
Yeah.
if you're the type of person that you could sell an escort to Ron Jeremy, okay?
Exactly.
I'm not saying that's
That's why he's here, dude. And it wasn't an escort, it was a Ford Escort. It's like a 92. And he's fallen on tough times.
And yes, that's equivalent to the sex worker type of automotive vehicles that we can talk about here,
Yeah.
but it's not the
We love
only
a
thing we're
hatchback.
selling. Yeah, exactly. It's like, why do you think I had to replace the gear shift? Okay, you know what?
Yeah, you don't want to know? Follow me on my OnlyFans page.
And what's sad to me is that I think OnlyFans is going to be the preferred medium over Patreon just because it had the meme factor. It's
Right.
like, it's not just for folks in that category. It has the leverage of being known in the public sphere as something that's a little bit naughty, so people do it in a playful way. Versus
Right.
like, why would I have a Patreon connect to my credit card if I already have an OnlyFans connect to my credit? I
Let's
wouldn't
go,
tell you
dude.
that, but if
Yeah.
I come subscribing,
It is weird that people don't want to admit it. And I'm like, you know what I mean? Like
Yeah.
because there is just enough of a taboo where I'm like, we're still lying about that part
Yes.
too. I struggle with this with people in general. And I feel like it's one of those, going back to the artist and how the writing, all the creativity, at some point in my life, I was just like, oh, by the way, I do kind of, joking aside, I do kind of lightly thank Tom Petty for this because I was young enough to have that moment where, they say never meet your heroes, right? But nobody
Yeah.
tells children that. They tell you that when you're in your 30s or you're
Yeah.
bad at everything. And I remember taking from this where I was like, if I want to be in this field, I pretty much have to lock in right now that the person I portray has to be me. Like it can't be a portrayal. It has to just be a genuine output because I never ever, if I was like a kid, but I'm like, if I ever got successful in a way that mattered to the world, I would hate anyone to have a shitty Mark story, right? Not
Yeah.
out of any other way than like, I think some people get caught up with that being like an ego thing. And it's not about that. It's not about like a need to be liked or anything like that, but it's more about like, people are generally shitty all the time.
Yeah.
And if somebody in a position of like authority, power, whatever, is kind to you in a genuine way, that'll probably influence you the rest of your life. And I'm hoping that in some stupid way that changes the world on a very interpersonal grassroots level. It sounds probably insane or trite or whatever, but
no, I think it's very much on the nose, and it's why podcasts have a level of popularity. It's like,
Yeah.
I think there's a really significant change in any young adult's life where the people that didn't like you from the get were easier to stomach than people that eventually didn't like you.
Right.
And those folks knew you for your honest self, and you had to kind of come to terms with what changed. Was it one bad interaction, or was this a compounding of things? So like, all you can do is be yourself in the
Yeah.
most genuine form that you know how, and that does not only have upsides.
Sure.
But I think going back to like the monetary push behind someone's art, it's like you need to quantify whether this is a sustainable business practice or not.
Absolutely.
And thank God that we have paid services like OnlyFans, Patreon, whatever it's going to be, even the paid Instagram models that are eventually going to allow for that. That's not a medium that I've gone through,
Sure.
because I find that is the most fickle version of what I do. But I still sell hard copies of CDs because
I
at
love
the end of the
that,
day.
though.
Yeah, you're not going to get anywhere on the money you put into this to being able to do the next one if you don't go for the route that pays you back.
Yep.
And it's a hard thing for people to understand at the
Yeah.
end of the day. You feel ridiculous for selling a CD. It's like, no, I'm cooking these in my parents' basement. I
Right.
went down to fucking Walmart. I got these recyclables, okay?
Yeah.
And I don't care if you ever spin it or not. It's the more direct version of going after the primary thing that I have known as output
Right.
than anything else, you know?
No, I love that. I kind of love too, and I think I'm seeing this with obviously the recent resurgence in vinyl buying and all of that kind of stuff. That I do think people are kind of maybe not quickly moving towards it, but kind of circling back towards physical media, which I think is like a really great way to support everybody. You know?
Well, I think you have to make sure there's value behind that thing. And what's interesting about vinyl is it's the only thing that vibrates in the room. A CD doesn't have that kind of warmth.
Right.
And they talk about analog versus digital. I don't think people understand or care about that. But there is
Yeah.
a physical resonance that does mean something to people on a very basic level.
Yeah, if you're an enthusiast, you get it, right?
Yeah.
But this is this is like a weird thing. If I got on my soapbox about streaming and why I kind of
Stand on the chair.
It's funny when streaming first happened, I fought it. I fight all of these things. One of the funniest things in life to me is like, as I get older, I'm like, I just don't care anymore.
Yeah.
Not that I don't care. I care actually, but I'm just like, no, you guys didn't listen to me 20 years ago when I said, this is where we're headed. And you wanted to be like, shut the fuck up. You're angry, Mark.
Well, thank God you're documenting that now so you can't pull up the clips and
which
be
is
like,
so
I fucking
great.
told you.
Dude, so I remember
Ron Jeremy,
thinking-
Hulk Hogan crossover episode.
Yeah,
I
dude,
mean,
it's the New World Order, okay?
Dude,
They've been out
could
of
you
office
imagine?
I never watched wrestling. That was like the only
What?
thing I remember. I know, dude.
Go back. Facebook has found out that I had a small timeline of WWE in my past.
Oh, yeah.
And has made me such a deeper fan in the last couple of years.
That's cool.
And I love that about it.
I really struggle with bad art. And hold on, let me rephrase that because Zachariah Sage is going to call me in his foghorn leghorn.
Dude, he was just on my podcast last week, and we're getting into this.
I've been sharing the clips.
Thank you for doing so.
Yeah, it was really fun, and I love Zach, and I love the voice is great when he come in here with his.
Yeah, dude. I mean, the crossover.
And he came and did an episode here that way with him, and the whole time I was just like, bro, I'm just going to give it back to you.
Dude, it's amazing, though. And I think there's something about being your authentic self that does allow for characters. Just like Shitty Mark is a great character to play where it's like, all right, let me look directly at the camera and tell you how I really fucking feel before I get too serious about this. And if you just shaved a straight strip down the middle, you just had some crazy... Dude, mutton chops need to make a resurgence. The mustache is out. People are tired of the mustache.
That's true.
It's gone back to being creepy.
Yeah, it's like that, and like there's a whole. It's a powerful look though, in my opinion.
Once in a blue moon, once my wife leaves the house, I go down to a mustache just to see, like, she'll obviously notice, but can we get past it in one conversation? Can I just walk over it?
Yeah,
you know?
You're like, what's wrong?
Are you talking about this little milk catcher?
Yeah, exactly. Little soup strainer.
No, I have some friends with beautiful mustache, and I feel like they really found themselves in that.
Yeah.
But I do know deep down that they can't grow a beard, and that's what's holding
that's
them back.
all it comes down to.
Whoa.
That's the hottest take on this whole show so far. Is that
the soul patch can't come back for some reason? They're holding me back. Like,
they should bring the. You know what? This is our chance to bring. Everyone should shave.
Look at this
soul
right now.
patch only.
Yeah, imagine this was all just beautiful skin. Okay,
it's just this little guy right
Lift
here.
up your hand a little bit, Mark. Come on, yeah. Dude, you could have a really nice soul patch.
Dude,
okay,
I've been working on it for a few years. That's like
your
4
touch
years
of gray
growth.
is most potable.
Thank
there.
you. I appreciate it. Yeah, just a hint of it. You know
the dude from Disturbed that has the dual piercings, and it looks like pigtails coming out of his lower lip. And the fact that he's become a sensitive voice on the internet, I'm out. Fuck no, please don't.
It kind of cracks me up. But he, what's funny is he's been that way since Twitter started.
Really?
And I remember when it first started, the Disturbed was really popular. This is around when I was, still doing music.
Yeah.
And I remember thinking, I'm like, this band's really popular. We should steal a few techniques from what they're doing because they're making millions of dollars. Yes. And I would love hundreds of dollars. You know what I mean? Like, I was like, if we can figure this out,
Yeah.
But oh my gosh. But anyway, it is always funny that he is like, he looks so silly.
Yes.
But then he's like this very like, take me seriously. I have sensitive thoughts.
Yeah.
And I care about all of you. And you're like, all right, David.
Well, I don't even think that he looks silly. He looks like a character. So when he breaks that character, it's like that's when it looks silly. When you're going to be a sensitive type that's at Barnes & Noble fucking sipping a cappuccino and you're talking about your most recent memoir of short haikus, and I'm like, aren't you the go?
Yeah, and it's like, with the sickness I am down.
They took me to the downtown. I was reading about my recent sound. They said it was bad. Another round. And they just stares at the audience and they're like, that's it? That's why I'm here? No jazz snaps. No, I can't. Do you like jazz?
Yeah, I fucking love jazz. Like jazz fusion is probably like, especially now that I've been doing the podcast.
Yeah.
That's like all, I would not say it's all that I listen to, but I feel like I'm so often cutting audio or watching the show. Or,
yeah.
I almost don't listen to things with words anymore. Not in a bad way, but
that's an interesting workflow that people don't understand. A lot of folks go with the non-English route to try to diffuse that. It's like, I'm not much of a lyrics person. I focus more on the music, but I definitely agree that I can move quicker if I'm not bogged down by my lyrical affiliation with the music. Are you hip to Spherical Agenda? Sorry.
Oh, yeah, dude. Brandon Coleman, baby.
Have you ever had him on the show?
I have not, but we talk about it all the time.
He is one of the most amazing voices in the Cincinnati music
scene. I 100%
scene.
Agree. He's a wonderful person. He connected me with another musician recently, and it didn't end up working out.
Who was it?
I forget their name, but I can pull up the email. But they were touring.
Him and Matt Wiles. You need to have them both on the show.
That'd be great.
Yeah, they're fucking fantastic.
Dude, Brandon rules. Like he's again unbelievably talented. But I know I was giving Zach a hard time earlier, but also another incredibly talented person. And I love the character building.
Yes.
But when you're friends with someone, you're like, listen.
No, exactly. It's like I can't help but feel this third wall. That's another thing about being in your local music scene is folks remember you from when you sucked.
Right.
You need to get out of town for people to respect what you do. That's kind of the uphill battle of what someone like myself is going through. I tour a little bit.
Yeah.
And when I go out of town, people have a totally different idea of what they just watched than when my friends and family show up. And,
Yeah, it's like,
some
look, remember when Matt shit himself in 3rd grade? You know what I mean? Like, that's like the
fourth
you know
grade.
what I'm saying?
Fourth grade picture day.
I'm sorry.
Okay, and
I
my siblings were bullying me at the kitchen table, saying you have a crustache and a unibrow. It's picture day. I'm like, I can't go with this. I'm the youngest of 4 kids, and they are ripping on me at breakfast.
Yeah.
And I'm like, it's not true. You're fucking liars. I
Yeah.
can't stand you. My mom's like, come here. You do have a crustache and a unibrow. We're gonna shave that right now. And I was like, no way.
Yeah.
That was the equivalent of me shitting myself. You
That's
know?
perfect. I mean, that works.
I can't remember the last time I shit my pants. Can you?
Yeah. The last time you shit your
No,
pants?
no. Because you had such a good view of that I don't want you to bring it up, but you.
Yeah. No, well, I was the one operating the GoPro camera that we put up there to document it.
We were at Skate Town,
Follow
USA.
us on OnlyFans.
Skate Town,
Offhand?
USA. I was going 40 miles an hour around turn, eating a Kit Kat
Letting
bar.
it rip, dude. Shotgun blast.
Yeah, I
Let's
was
go.
19.
Hit the boost. Hitting the boost. But no, I've never shit myself at a skating rink that I remember.
Okay, cool, cool.
I'll have to think about that.
Yeah.
I'm sure there's one in there, but then it's like, how embarrassed do I want to be about it?
Yeah, I think that's
You know?
how.
I mean, sometimes you're just on the border of Georgia and South Carolina trying to use the bathroom and things go horribly
Yes.
wrong.
I think that the new realm of media involves you bringing up the things you're least proud of to start.
Yeah.
And then if I make it past that first 15 minutes, now we're good to go. That's why they love RFK. He's like, I was doing heroin.
Yeah,
And
right.
it's
You're
like,
like,
well, I can't even do that voice.
Gargling hot asphalt, dude. He sounds like Tom Waits, but in a bad way.
Whoa, wouldn't that be crazy to ask the AI for
That's a podcast. All right, RFK,
Dude.
Tom Waits, let's go.
That could be pretty fucking good. Yeah.
It would be the most unlistenable thing I've ever
Yeah.
heard, even if there was great interview.
Are you hip to Dead Man String Band?
Familiar.
Rob
but
McAllister?
I've you know what's funny is Rob's one of those guys that I don't know personally.
Yeah.
I think we may be Facebook friends, but I shut off my Facebook a little while back for this is another story.
That explains
But,
why I couldn't get you on Messenger. Give me your phone
well,
number.
you can, yeah, you
Give
can.
me your phone number on the air.
What's so funny is and the last
start.
4 are. No, but it was funny because they'll still let you use Messenger. The worst part about taking a break from Facebook is finding out how fucking stupid everyone is. Because what'll happen is they'll message you and be like, did you block me? And I'm like, motherfucker, you wrote me a message and it didn't go, Mark doesn't exist anymore.
Yeah.
So no, I didn't fucking block you. Jesus Christ, guys, that's not how it works. If I blocked you.
You're doing really well, though, if people are wondering. And I think that kind of petty introspection leads people to understand where their place is in your life. Like,
Yeah.
if you have to ask that, like, turns out I'm just not interested, you know?
Yeah,
I was willing to pester past that point, and look what happened.
It worked out
Friendship.
great. And it didn't feel like pestering. You're just like, would you like to do this? I was like, hell yeah. And then I was like, I'll write you back later today.
That's
Or
always one of
the
those
end of
see you in a month
October.
kind of things. Yeah. But that's awesome. That's what it's for.
I did. Well, like I was telling you off air, I was like, I felt so fucking bad about that.
That's what
and then it
happens
was
in
when
this,
I
though.
saw, it was either John or Zach, John Klein, that you had on there recently.
Yeah.
Like one of them had mentioned they were doing it. And I was like, oh fuck, I never wrote Matt back. And I was just like, well, let's see what happens. And I wrote you back, and you were still cool about it. So thanks,
Dude,
I'm
I
sorry.
could care less. But it's also one of those things when you do a show like this, when you speak this much on the internet, people have a perception of how well they know you, even
Sure.
on the smallest microcosm level of the internet world that we live in versus the monoliths that do this kind of thing.
Right.
So when people reach out to you, it's loaded by the personal experience they've had with this.
Yeah.
And to you, that's a rando on the internet. I was a rando on the internet, and you still gave me that time of day, but it's hard for folks to not take that personally, and I think that's a
Right.
big part of how the internet's kind of jaded us towards enjoying things. It's like, I need to feel as relevant in your life as you do in mine
Yeah.
for me to take anything away from this.
And well, we're also in that weird era, right, where we're all kind of doctors now. You don't need to have that much access to me.
Well, I
you
have,
know?
I have an aunt who got her PhD online, and she brought it up at a family party, and I was like, no, that's not it. Not on my side of the family, but it was crazy. It was
Really?
an awesome family party.
I bet.
Yeah, I think when folks take themselves that seriously, it's like, well, I can't defuse this bomb in the slightest, so
Yeah.
we might as well just rip into the sunset and see what's going on with
I
you.
love
You
it.
know?
Yeah, exactly.
So let's get a scalpel out and find out what we're made of. You know?
Right? Yeah. What is this?
Yeah. You ever play RuneScape?
No, actually, I haven't. But I feel like that's a game. I don't know how I missed it. There's like a few things, like the wrestling thing.
Yeah.
I would say trading card games. Like all of these things I
Entirely?
somehow missed. And I'm a nerd, dude. So it was
Yeah.
like a weird thing that I like. Magic the Gathering happened. But I think, you know what the real catch is? I seriously think about this. Is that I think I just didn't have friends at those right times, like at all. So then I had nobody to get into those things
Yes.
with. So I just read X-Men comic books at my house. And it was great.
Dude, that's an awesome rabbit hole to go down there.
Yeah.
Was there anything about those days that kind of made its way into your many art forms? Was
Yeah,
there a character
absolutely.
development that happened there?
Yeah, I think, and I talk about the band thing, but I think a lot of it turned into self-reliance. Once the band broke up, the first thing I did was I was like, well, I want to keep doing this. But we had no money. I worked at the airport. Like, I threw bags and sucked shit out of airplane bathrooms.
How long did you do that for?
Like a couple years. But I did it.
That changed you as a man?
What's that?
That changed you as a man?
Oh, for sure it did.
That's
dude.
awesome.
But not as much as I thought, actually. And what I learned, okay, so we'll go to that. We'll go back to the art,
Yes,
how
yeah.
it affected the art. But I started at the airport because I just wanted free flights. And I was like, dude, I can get us all free flights and we can travel all over the country. So it was kind of a cheat code in that I was like, we were going out to LA and like, when that was still crucial to success. And I was like, guess what, guys? That cost us $7. Now, we only made like $9 an hour at the job, so you couldn't really still afford to do anything once you got to these places, but it provided us a lot of opportunity to kind
Anything
of
you won't pack to this day because of that experience?
No, I think for the most part, I just take less shit overall.
Yeah.
It's like more of like you see the memes about, well, going back to shitting yourself. You see the memes about
time.
like, do you pack underwear for a 2-day trip like you're going to shit yourself 5 times? And I'm like, I don't. And even back then I didn't. I had one extra pair, but now I'm like, anyway.
You never know, dude. I can go without socks, but I can't go without drawers.
Oh, for sure.
Because if it happens then, the pants are done.
Yeah.
Now, when you can't take liquids through the airport, could you take gelatin? Because I know you can take ice.
That's a good question, actually. I think it's weird that they make that a thing for ice. I was like, that feels like a Mission Impossible plot line.
Yeah, and just because you can't freeze alcohol doesn't mean like you can't have it at the center of an ice block.
Right.
Like,
Seal the outside and then fill it in the middle.
Bert Kreischer almost had like the liquid IV version of booze that was going to
Really?
take off, and I think that would have been the most violent thing to happen to airport security.
imagine, dude?
No, dude,
Yeah.
just people doing lines
And
of
doing Bert
powder-based
Kreischer
alcohol.
impressions.
Yeah, heroes. You're taking their shirts off, wearing wearing a Jason Mraz. What would you call that type of hat? God damn it, that shit
Whatever
looks
that
ridiculous.
like bucket hat thing was.
Yeah,
Yes,
I love that
that's
he's taking a stylistic like adventure on top of being like shirtless and fat.
Yeah, it's perfect. It's the dream, dude. Honestly, listen, if I thought I could get that money. Look, there's a lot of shirtless fat guys out there right now. We got Bert, we got Stavi doing it too.
Stavi's so much.
I'm not,
Yeah.
obviously he didn't really steal this from me, but like we'd been working on a calendar for like the last fucking 10 years.
Yeah.
And then to see him be successful. Now I just can't do it.
Yeah, dude. But I mean, there's something about being Greek and that body type that just wins. I don't know what your ethnicity
his
is,
words.
but like that was.
No,
Beautiful.
well, so as a fellow Mediterranean, it was a funny thing where I was like, damn, he's not stealing my bit because he has no idea. I don't matter to him. But it was a funny thing to be like, fuck, dude, this is another fat guy that's just doing my thing. It was like when Jack Black first got famous and I was like, would occasionally say something funny in a lyric and people were like, do you know that you're a Jack Black type? And I'm like, fuck that dude. Like, no, I did this on my own. And then I'm like, is there some universal calling to like fat dudes that I just don't know about?
Yeah, but I think Stavi took on a different role in comedy where he's just like, he's like the lovable buddy at like the back of your friend group walking into the club. Like he can't keep up with the group, but like he's always shouting shit from the back there. Everyone's giggling about it, kind of diffusing the scene.
And you know that he's a good laugher too. So when you throw a little heat out there, he'll definitely let you know it was good.
Yeah, and if it wasn't, he will rip you.
Yeah, for sure.
He was the one guy that I watched him go through like a workout training camp online to see no physical change. And I was like,
he gave it up. He's like, I'm losing 100 pounds. Okay, so
Adidas just sponsored him for doing it. He's like, this was enough.
Yeah, right. Well, it's so funny. So I saw him when he was here in town last. I had great seats, but like maybe too great a seat because then I had that moment as a fat person where I watched him walk out. And I'm a long time Cumtown fan. Like I followed his career for a while, so I'd watched him. And, Nick Mullen would always make fun of him on the show for being fat. And in hindsight, it's one of those things that if you can emotionally handle it as a big person, you might need that friend, right? Like, I'm not saying it's for everyone, but I am saying as like, I don't know, I prefer a little like direct communication like that. So if I had a friend that was like, dude, you look unhealthy, for real.
Yeah.
It might sting, but it might be the thing that helps. So anyway, watching Stav, I'm in like the second row, and he walks out on Taft, and he's bigger than I've ever seen him look before, and he's like sweaty as fuck, and it just looked like it was one of those things where I was like, oh shit. It made me reevaluate every dietary choice I've ever made. Now I haven't really done anything with it since, but
that being said, too, like that's just someone's body type. At the end of the day, like
and I don't
you
mean
can be as
anything
healthy
shitty about
no,
it.
no,
Right.
no, it's a
I know people
comedic
get
outbreak
weird about it.
Well, and people are fine to be sensitive about whatever they choose to be sensitive about, but there's something to be said about like you can prioritize your health and have no one else see the effects of that,
course.
but you can feel that.
Yeah.
I think what we're seeing right now is the climb of everyone having their own brand of confidence to embrace.
Yeah.
And I think if you don't have that, you're really behind the game. Like
For sure.
if you're still looking at like plus size models and saying like I want to look like that, it's like no. It turns out you just need to rep what you got and get out there.
I agree with that 100%. And again, no shade on that, obviously, or anything like that.
No,
but it's just that thing where it was like, for me, it was more about like
Yeah.
seeing myself there, and I'm like, oh, I get on a stage. If somebody sits here, would they have the same thought about me? Kind of. It's like that was the ego thing where I was like, oh, do I look unhealthy? Do I feel unhealthy? And you're right. It's like, well, at the end of the day, it's you or you. I don't know. I don't. I'm backpedaling now because I'm like, oh, this is
No.
I
I think you spoke on it well, and it's like
I'm fat phobic officially.
when I put this into the
self-loather.
AI, I'm like, make him look shitty, because an AI does
You're
all
like,
my
what's
clips.
Opus AI going to do for us
Dude,
today?
Opus is the
great,
shit.
by the way,
If folks aren't using that, I saw saying the other day, it's like 40 AI apps that'll up your productivity by a long shot. It's like, hey, as this encroaches, like, let's not be afraid to embrace this on a small business level, because at the end of the day, like, if you don't keep up with the curve, you are going to get left in the dust, and that's a really tough part of the game.
Yeah, you have to dive into the new techs. Actually, I think I started going on this train and never finished, but I was talking about back in the day, me getting angry on the early internet about things. For me, it was like 2006. I'm in college, and we're learning all this stuff, and this is around the time iMovie pops off. But back then, editing was like kind of inaccessible. And so this comes back to like my overall feeling about how technology will create accessibility for some, but also create, in my opinion, usually a bigger problem, which is now edit. There's the banana suit guy. See the yellow jacket?
Nah, dude,
he
you're
just
lying.
walked by again. I'm like,
It's clearly green. You're
haunting me.
colorblind. No, you're colorblind as fuck. I'm telling you.
It turns out it's lime green.
Dude, what if?
I am colorblind. That's why you can't not match if you have every color in the world.
It's
You know what I
incredible. I guess you do have the way of diffusing. You just like write what that color is just to make sure you know if it goes.
Yeah.
I have a friend that recently signed up for the U.S. military. He's like, turns out I'm colorblind as fuck. And I'm like, really? He's like, took you till 30 to find that out? He goes, yeah, dude, this sucks.
Well, I think until that, it's like it doesn't really affect you too much unless you couldn't see like traffic lights, right? And then I'm like, oh, it's not like that. It's more like if I'm cruising somewhere and she's like, what color is that? The answer's always aqua because I'm like, oh, it's purple or it's blue. I don't know which answer you want out of me.
My wife is an architect's daughter that loves to get in the nitty gritty about those kind of details. Where the other day I called saying C phone, she goes, yeah, that's C phone. And I put it down in my mental talk. I was like, big fucking win today, boy.
Yeah, exactly.
My diary says, gotcha, baby.
Yeah, exactly. Love you. It's C phone. You know,
I think I derailed you when you were going into something about comedy, but I think we're too far gone to grab any
we
of that
could try
stuff.
again. We were talking about something affecting the creation of art, I think I remember as
Yeah.
well. All of it does is really the short answer, right? And all these little things. And so like now it just kept shifting. The whole creation of art just kept shifting for me because it was like music was approaching one thing and it was like not even like super. I never feel vulnerable, if that makes sense, in that that might be a weird way to say it, but it's like I'm not afraid to express how I really feel, my emotions, anything. Yeah. So like the idea of vulnerability to me doesn't really exist on a personal level in that I don't feel like I exposed a soft side. All of me is soft. Does that make sense?
Well, I think when you do long form, it changes everything about that.
Yeah.
Like, have you ever considered doing a comedy hour?
Yeah. I think about it all the time. Honestly,
you should do it at Radio Artifact, dude.
I'd love to. I love Devin and Tetrick. I mean, they're the best.
They really are. And I think, talking before about you've done an amazing thing in Cincinnati by affirming a lot of people in the artistic community across a wide endeavor of whatever you would kind of call this podcast center. And you have an amazing outlet to do so that you clearly earned through a lot of years of who knows where the hard work was put in, but it paid off in some way, shape, or form.
Thank you, truly.
Yeah, and those guys have done something really bizarre by giving me a stage that feels like it has the quality of output of the quality of input,
Exactly.
Like, if you're familiar with Paul Reed Smith guitars, there's a great TED Talk where he's talking about the guitar cannot be a subtractive instrument. When you put something in, you want to get that out.
Yeah.
for years, our venues in this town have felt subtractive from the experience. It's too big, it's too small, it doesn't sound great, whatever the fuck. Finally, there's a room that 125 people can go in there, get their minds rocked, and the people on the internet can say, wow, I wish I was there, but I felt like I was.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
You know, when 2020 happened, we had been doing a bunch of stuff with them right before that. They'd like my last short film I premiered there in 2019. And then they were like, we're going to build a live stream studio during COVID. So I used to hang out there I had nothing really going on.
Yeah.
So I just hang out. I love it. It's one of the best venues in the
Midwest.
It's one of the best. Yeah, exactly. I'm like, curse you, not beer.
Dude.
It's, by the way, it is really quality water, but nice.
Are you sponsored by them too?
I'm not actually.
I was gonna say, you've been logo out this whole time. I'm starting to question your motives.
I'm just so used to it because I'm always like, if I love a secret of me on the show is that I always think back to this time. Jungle early on was like, you can say you don't like stuff, right? And he's like, just don't be like a dick about it.
Yeah.
And I was like, well, I don't think I would ever really be a dick about it unless I said it in a funny way, like making fun of Stav or like, I love you. Sorry, dude. You're my Greek cousin. I'm just the handsome one. But no.
What the tentacles do, baby. You know what I'm saying?
Exactly. Listen, we need an Egyptian meatball, Stav.
Honestly, I think you can get that stature of a comedian on this show. I think that can happen pretty easily next time.
I actually had a pretty good one recently that I haven't aired at the time of this recording, but I'm excited to. But we're watching some footage. So I've got a friend upstairs that helps me cut some of the social stuff, too. And he does a lot of other things for me. Lucky's great. Helps with the producing the show, producing all the short content, all that kind of stuff. But we're working on something cool like that. So I actually don't. It's one of those that like now that we got one, and I was like, it's on.
Yeah, it really is.
And I told them I was.
How many episodes are you in right now?
Today is 164.
Yeah. I feel like there's a sweet spot around 200 of finding out what you're made of. And also, it's a signifier to the audience that you're here to stay.
Yeah.
I think one of the biggest deterrents to people understanding and appreciating the local art scene is that your favorite bands break up, your favorite artists give up. All these things are fickle.
Yeah.
And if you can remind people that this is a lifelong, what I would call, because I grew up in the Catholic Church, a vocation. If you feel called to do something by a creator giving you the opportunity to be creative, then you can persist in a way that people can admire and feel affirmation in. But if this is just a band that's going to break up in 6 months because you only had the $7 to get on a $9 flight, then you're going to be fucked, you know?
Right, exactly. You know, thinking about that, and first off, again, thank you for the kind words about me helping inspire people. I hope that's true, truly, because that's like really secretly the goal.
You're kicking the door in, and people are afraid to do that.
And for me, it was always just like, I tell people all the time, I'm like, I think half of my success is that I just showed up. And most people say no to stuff. And I think of a couple things. I think of this guy, I think maybe I'm wrong, but he was like, when I was doing like marching band in high school, his name was Dr. Tim Lotzenheiser. And he would go give like inspirational speeches to students. But he had this one bit that always stuck to me, which was like, you know, he like framed, we're like 14, 15 years old. He's like framing, he's like, if there's like a girl or a boy you like at school, if you don't ask them out, they already said no. But this concept of inaction keeps you at a guaranteed no.
Yeah.
Changed everything for me. And it was a little bit of that and a little bit when we were young. My sister was an avid equestrian. She did horseback riding, all that stuff. And I did it for a little while with her. And she was really, really good at it, but I saw how badly she'd get affected in a competitive scene if she didn't win, right? Yeah. And again, she was incredibly talented at it. She should have won, but it's just the name of the game. And I remember seeing how like upset that made her. And I remember thinking as a young kid being like, okay, that sucks. Hopefully, whatever that thing is, hopefully I can avoid it. And so a big thing for me in life is just always hitting the gas a little bit. You know, I view my career as though I've been going down a highway, right? And there's multiple lanes on the highway. And sometimes, you know, for a while, the music lane was wide open, baby. And then one day in June of 2008 or May of 2008, everybody didn't want to do music anymore. And then I'm like, okay, well, I got to shift lanes to now I'm singer-songwriter for a second. And then that didn't really work. So I started working in the comedy thing into the performance angle and hosting shows, right? And then it's like, as that goes on, then I'm working in radio for a little bit because I either wanted to be David Lee Roth or I wanted to be David Letterman. Yeah. So I was like, one of the Davids, let me get this going. And I was just driving down whatever lane would open to me at the time. And I think sometimes artists get paralyzed by the potential no, right? I mean, shit, dude. Okay, so I've been working on all these commercials. I audition for movies and shit all the time, and they're like big roles.
Yeah.
I probably put out, I don't know what the number is, but it's an absurd amount of auditions, and I work a lot. But the percentage of wins is so small.
Yeah.
But most people are so locked into the fact that like, well, why would I get cast in Superman? I see the audition for Superman come in. I'm like, oh shit, I might be in Superman, right?
Yeah.
And then I go, and I'm not in it. Thank God, because I broke all my bones this summer. But like,
yeses and nos, or apples and oranges, they're not comparable things.
I 100%
yeses
agree.
Are more, like one of the things that I found kind of odd was watching the Nationwide commercial pop up, and then it's like, bring your audience to say yes or no to this. And it's like, you engaging in this as a popularity contest does not give credit to the job that was done. And, from a friend perspective, you crushed it. That's the quantification of success that we can't measure against a popularity contest that you're going to put out that way.
Yeah.
And unfortunately, so much of the entertainment world has kind of fallen in that category, whether it's the Battle of the Bands or American Songwriter, or all these hundreds of things. It's like, well, hey, do I want to beg my audience to propel me into a contest that's going to have very fickle reward, or do I want to show them the thing that I want to sell them, find out how to monetize it, and move forward with my business plan as is?
It's an interesting take. I think I sit somewhere in the middle, right? Because I do think, unfortunately, it's one of those things. It's like, I hate social media, but I'm good at it, right? So, and it's a necessary evil. So even getting off Facebook for a few months, that killed like a huge revenue stream for me. But I'm making the choice to do it, right?
Yeah.
So I think back to just, finding that spot in between of, shit, how did you just say it? You said it so eloquently, describing the two sides about monetize versus...
The banana hammock doesn't hold in the suspension kind of way that I would hope would hold up to... You
gotta cup the balls.
Not only cup, but you need to have something like elastic, so that as they run, there's ability to move.
Right. I want a little give.
Yeah, exactly.
And so going back to the popularity
when we
contest,
left the Garden of Eden, we put the banana hammock on. It was the first time, and it stayed.
Which is crazy. The banana hammock was actually the forbidden fruit. That's the crazy part.
Oh my God.
Nobody knew.
And it was
That's why they
gender-neutral.
say, how do you like them apples? That's what this is all about.
It was for everybody, and you didn't understand why, but now we know. I think we know.
I'm just saying. Yeah.
Who cares?
The popularity contest thing, I do think is a little important. I think about how... Like, we have, like, local awards things. I love it. I love City Beat. They do the Best of Cincinnati every year. And, like, a few years back, I was like, hey, I had a couple cool wins. I would love your votes for this. And some people had said I'd campaigned hard, but I was like, dude, just because you see my posts often doesn't mean I'm pushing this all the time.
And they don't see all your posts. I mean, you need to shoot like nobody's watching. That's one of the things I recently saw. A guy named Jesse Cannon that does great music marketing talking about most of your audience will not see 90% of your content.
Yeah.
So if it feels redundant to you, it does not feel redundant to them.
Exactly. And if they do, they can fuck themselves a little. Not in a mean way, but like, I don't tell you how the fuck to post, so shut the fuck up. If you don't like mine, why did you friend request? You know what I mean?
But do I need to spend your viewing hours pandering for someone else's affirmation of what I'm doing?
That's a great point too. Yeah.
That's where I start to be bothered by those things, whether it's The Voice or the X Factor or any of these other contest-based things. It's like, did you do a good job? Do we need to now whore you out for your potential populace? It's like, it's a Nationwide commercial. It's Mark Borison's fans really going to come to Nationwide because you put them in the commercial?
Right.
Or does your business stand on its own?
Yeah, that's a great... Yeah, I mean, I think so much of it comes down to it's the individual too. Like, what do you actually want? Do you want to be a pop star?
Yeah.
Or do you want to do that? So a lot of it is... Yeah, where do you want to go with it? But that's, I think, an important thing, and I think some people get a little lost in that too, is a common thread of discussions I've had with a lot of my creative friends on a personal note who are in varying states of struggle right now every time I go, what the fuck do you want to do with life? What is your goal? And I think, unfortunately, I don't know. Maybe it's the fact that I did spend a good portion of my youth handicapped. So I spent a lot of time with myself and a lot of time thinking.
Yeah.
And because I couldn't do a lot of those physical things that kids did growing up, I'm not saying I was like trapped in the house all the time or anything like that. But like, kids were like playing sports. I kind of couldn't hang. I could swing the baseball bat, but I couldn't easily run to the base, right?
And it's the reason they call it your formative years. I mean, it changed you as a person. The way you think will be affected by what that... Limitations make the best art. So that limitation has put you in a place where you make this style that's very rare.
Right, and if nothing else, it's authentic to me, right? Yeah. And so I often feel bad because for me, I had a pretty, even as a young kid, where I was like, I had a pretty interesting, it wasn't like so detailed that I'm like, I'm going to release a #1 album. It's going to be in this genre. It wasn't like that, but it was more like, yeah, I think I could be a rock star. I think I could host the Tonight Show. I think I could do these things. And then it was, again, when I grew up, we didn't have the internet like that. The internet got cool when I was 19, really.
Yeah.
And even then it was still finding it's what YouTube still didn't exist. So I think about all these things, how there were no resources. So for me, my whole career has been like, I don't know how this works. And I'm going to just keep showing up and hoping I figure it out kind of a thing.
Well, it's really well put. And I think there has to be a line between big dreams and measured steps where you start to quantify how you're going to get there.
Yeah.
And folks don't understand how to make bite-sized their monolithic hopes and dreams of what happens next. Like, I got the kind of dad that'll call me and say, like, why aren't you opening for Taylor Swift? And I find that slightly infuriating at times, but in other ways, it's like, at least someone believes in me enough to call and ask.
Dude, that's awesome.
That's a wild thing.
I'm honestly a little jealous of that phone call. I think it's great. Not to say that, like, again, I said earlier, I was like, my parents were supportive, but like, it was more about, I think for us, because we had a lot of creatives in the family, I think they saw how bad they struggled, and they were like in real cities. Not to be mean about Cincinnati, but like in the 70s and 80s, Cincinnati was not a place you went to be an actor.
Up until the last 10 years, you couldn't do it anywhere.
Right. And that's a thing. And even now, I still truly believe if I wanted to take certain aspects of my career to the next step, I have to be in LA or I have to be in New York.
Yeah.
I think that will shift.
At the current point in time, yes.
Right.
I totally agree.
And I think we're mid-shift, but it's one of those things too where I'm like, I don't want to do this when I'm 50. Being 40 now, I'd rather do it now.
Absolutely.
But at the same time, I agree. And it is kind of nice. I think COVID helped a lot in that regard. Just even auditions changed where we used to all go like cattle call style to a random hotel ballroom here in town, and you'd read for the client, you'd read for the casting director, all that stuff in person.
Yeah.
Now it's like, what's up? I'm Mark. I'm reading for this. Here's the part. Oh, I love insurance. Or, whatever the copy is. And it's leveled the playing field in that, well, this kind of goes back to my comment earlier about my soapbox rant about streaming services where it opened up the door accessibility-wise. So now a lot more people can come in. But I would wager that it's probably made the casting director's job harder because instead of going through like vetted talent that again, I've been doing this professionally now for 10 years. If I show up, if you've worked with me at all, or if you just look at my talent resume, you're like, oh shit, Mark's worked for like huge brands and they have let him lead. Versus, and not to say that someone who's never done that can't do it, but there's like a certain level of expectation, right? So again, I go back to like the accessibility is great. And that's where I go back with the streaming thing where it's like, hell yes. Any musician now can put their music out there for the world to hear. The problem I sometimes run into is that there's like a level between hobbyist and this is my true life passion / what's the level of talent. There's so many questions that go into it.
I think that's a lot of a confidence barrier, until there's Cincinnati acts that feel like they've made that mark from here, a Walk the Moon or something like that. You start to feel like, I don't know where that next step happens. Versus now you have case studies that you can look at. And I think something like Radio Artifact lets the rest of the world know that we can make high quality output from a place like this because you have a soundstage for it. But there was a long point in time in my career where I was focused so much on touring because the traditional model says get out, play the shows, make sure that
introduce people to what your art. Yeah,
exactly.
Absolutely.
You need to be in as many rooms where there's potential fans as possible.
Yeah.
But it turns out the best room that you can play in that has limitless potential fans is the internet, and it's right through that thing.
Yeah.
And so you need to find out how to do that better, more affordably, more consistently.
Well, you talked about the AI thing earlier. It's like, that's another tool set that you have access to, and it's one of those things whenever I have somebody that like, okay, just to back up, I got a lot of, when I won a best comedian thing in Best City Beat, right? The first year, by the way, the first time I got nominated even, I was like, I don't actually think I belong on this. Like, I think I'm funny and I think I'm great. I'm like a podcast comedian, right? You know what I mean? I'm like, I'm great in this setting. I can host your show, but I didn't really want to write stand up. Like, I like telling jokes and everything, but it wasn't like the driver, right?
Yeah.
But I got some weirdly threatening messages during all of that. And it was so weird because I was just like, well, first off, I think we all know that this is a popularity contest.
Yeah.
And at the time I was like, I have a platform. Yeah, that sucks. But like, also, you have the same fucking platform I do. You're just not, you're too busy sending me fucking physical threats because I
We have
want
the same
something.
access here.
Yeah.
But
And
some
I'm like,
of us are doing podcasts, and other of us are going to the Tri-County Mall and getting throwing stars. Okay?
exactly. And because of the Shurikens, you've grown as a person.
And I think at the end of the day, what we're all looking for is personal development and our hand-eye coordination that involves throwing shurikens for more than 25 yards at a time. What the fuck do I need to ask of you?
No.
I mean, 75 feet is not that far, but if I want to take out an enemy...
Yeah. I mean, that's like how many yards? What's a third of 75?
Drone warfare has no real threat against shuriken fights.
It's so true. Heavy throw. I mean, look.
If I have the right altitude and a little bit of wind, game over.
One cruise missile, good luck, man. What's your area of effect like, you know?
When I was a kid, I was on a family vacation with a friend's family. So I'm the outsider. So
Love
I'm just trying to find ways to up the ante a little bit.
Of course.
I see a claw machine. It's my time. Go over to that claw machine. I'm fucking razzle dazzle, baby. I pick up a small remote control helicopter.
Sick.
Drop it. Money. It gets caught on the way down. I tell my mother about this.
Yeah.
A couple of threatening voicemails later, they mail this to my house. They get it out of there.
That's awesome.
I broke that thing immediately. That's when I lost hope in the drones. That's when I went to the Tri-County Mall and got shurikens.
Shurikens, yeah, because you can take them down, dude. Fuck a helicopter.
Dude.
You know what I mean?
The original boomerang was enough shurikens to not run out. You know?
Right, exactly. You're like, throw them back. Yeah.
I was given a boomerang for like a 10th birthday by my godfather / cousin. And boy, learning how to use that made me feel like I had a warfare upper hand that really doesn't apply in the real world. I am most at danger of the boomerang.
Yeah, that's good. I weirdly also have a boomerang memory around the same time. We were like, we were like a road trip family as well. And I don't remember where we were. I think we were in like South Carolina though. I think that's the trip.
You a Hilton Head family?
No, Charleston.
Okay,
but
nice.
we weren't even like a repeat one. I think we went there maybe like once. We went there at least
Vineyard
once.
Vines of South Carolina.
What's that?
The Vineyard Vines of South Carolina.
Yes, exactly. It was just like, oh, it's cool. You know, it was. I wonder how people pick travel back then because I imagine it. If I recall, I remember it was just one of those like my parents were like, oh, we hear Charleston's nice. Let's go find out. Right? Yeah. It's such a different world we live in now, where you're like, oh, what's the place? How many stars does it have?
Well, listen, I think there's big business is what correlates all these things at that point in time. It's like you wonder how Macy's found their way around. It's like they are the movers and shakers in a way that we don't really comprehend with how diversified the internet's made things.
Yeah.
But Cincinnati is the home to the most Sears build-a-home kits of anywhere in the nation. So Marriott pinpointed that and tried to put all this marketing towards Hilton Head, South Carolina.
Makes sense.
That's why it's pretty much a direct route at that point.
Yeah.
And then I guess your family just needs to be different, and you go to the Vineyard Vines of South Carolina.
Listen, I want to see some
the
ghost
class.
buildings. Right. This is the South Carolina classism.
We're not going to go to Savannah because I can't imagine.
The people, right? the greenery.
I recently went to South Carolina, and there are a lot of those ghost buildings. I'm like,
yeah.
Just because someplace feels icky doesn't mean you immediately need to go ghost town on it.
One of the other things I remember from that trip is they talked about they would paint certain buildings a certain shade of chartreuse.
What the fuck is that?
It's like a weird green. It's like a green that I would now probably wear as a main color. Honestly, aqua. And I remember they were like, allegedly, this keeps ghosts at bay. And at 10 years old, you're like, oh shit. And then at like 30 or 40 or whatever now, it's like, cool, that's weird.
Yeah.
But the boomerang thing, I'm pretty sure we bought it because back then the closest thing to a Jungle Jim's outside of a Jungle Jim's was Cracker Barrel. And I'm pretty positive that's where we bought the boomerang. And I just remember throwing it in the parking lot with my dad and us being like, this boomerang sucks. It like barely, it did like a soft loop.
Yeah.
But you're trying to throw it properly and you're like, this is dumb. And the little piece of shit paper that they staple on to be like, throw it like this, hold it vertical. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Now there's a guy on YouTube probably who's like, hey, mate, or he goes, you know what I mean? He's like showing you how to throw it
and
properly.
He's from Charleston. He's making up the
That's
accent.
even crazier, dude.
It's a Zachariah Sage situation. Making up that.
He's just got, well, I got this boomerang here, and I've been doing a lot of, I love you, Zach.
We love the character. We love you as a person. I hope he makes his way into pro wrestling with the character as well. That crossover will be what I'm there for.
He's another multi-talented, multidisciplinary person who I'm just like, I hope one of the lanes opens for you.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Well, I think the folks that are diversified are what we're going to lean on later in the game.
Hopefully.
It's like folks that are one-dimensional in their art forms are harder to grasp because it doesn't apply to the many places that you plug that in your life. Like the nice thing about podcasts is we are the passive company in your life.
Yeah.
You know, if you put this on, you're probably at work right now. You're probably cleaning somebody else's house on OnlyFans. I don't really know what you do for money, but
they're cleaning our house on OnlyFans,
dude. I would get so many Ring doorbells set up just to make sure that I can properly advertise what's
That's how I'm going to host my reality show is all Ring doorbells.
Someone cracking socks in half.
Can you imagine? But it would only like occasionally trigger depending on who walks in front of the camera. That show would suck. What the fuck is going on with the Yellow Jackets today? For real. That is I don't know if the second person that walked by and then that lady looks like Patrick Starr.
Do you think it's raining?
It probably is.
Do you think it's a
But why are we
stereotype
all,
that sells well?
I think it's a stereotype of fucking rain jackets. They're like, only yellow rain jackets.
What about the
repel
football
rain.
game, transparent trash can, trash
Poncho.
bag? Yeah.
Look, again, I'm here for
Classless.
accessibility. I want everyone to have it.
Yeah.
But it's my least favorite.
When was the last time you put on a nice pair of goulashes?
Oh, never actually. I don't think I've ever put them on. But I always, as a kid, I remember my dad having them. I'm like, what are these fake shoes? I love this concept. And now I'm like, all right, I don't have time
It's shoe
for it.
condoms.
Yeah.
If Trojan came out with a temporary goulash that was covered in spermicide, it would do really well.
Oh, it would do great. And I would do the same thing I do with the real condoms, which is, ripped for her pleasure. Let me turn it inside out.
No. You win this
That's
round,
so
my
mean.
friend.
I'm so sorry. I
You
would
win
never-
this round, my friend.
Yeah, it's like deep down, I was like, no, it's all for her.
My mother would always reminisce on her grandmother calling to make sure that her dad was wearing his goulashes when he left the house.
I
I'm
love
like,
that.
That's the craziest thing for a mom to be concerned of for a grown man.
Yeah.
But asking her grandchild, like, all right, go pester that dude about putting on his goulashes.
Make sure he doesn't have wet feet.
Yeah, exactly. I'm sure he's susceptible to gout at this point. Okay, let's get on top of this.
Oh my gosh, the athlete's foot. When
When I was a kid, my brother got trench foot playing football.
Really?
Yeah, and it's not like he had bad hygiene. I mean, I lived in the same household. He was
Yeah.
doing all right, but they cheese grated his foot to try to get him back to kosher. You
That's
know what I'm
awful.
saying?
Yeah, no, totally. Unfortunately,
Yeah, that's something I think
Blessed
could be
by
done
a
here.
rabbi and everything. It was crazy, dude. That was
Salted,
awesome.
you know?
If I can help,
Man,
I'm so sorry. I know we derailed a billion times. While you're thinking, I'm just going to say to the audience, if I can ever help you with something, don't annoy me, but I would happily offer encouragement, advice, all that kind of stuff.
you seem like the guy. When are you gonna take like phone callers into this show?
I actually, what's funny? I have a hotline. And I would put it out all the time, and then people would email me instead. I was like, dude, it's
of
anonymous.
shit. Yeah.
It's just a voicemail box. So, you can be like, you can make up a name, and it doesn't care. No one's going to know your voice unless you're famous.
I would love if there was like a classic telephone booth out here where they could just walk up and talk to you, and that's eye to eye.
It literally is over by the Alta Fiber one. And
That
I'm
is-
pretty sure the phone booth does work. But
absolute
I
trash.
think,
That
I
doesn't
think
work.
we pulled the number out because once we realized it worked, people were calling it all the time.
Yes.
So,
As they
I
should.
think about it. It's funny. You can see there's a cable right above the window there. Do you see it?
Yes.
So when we first built this, and you can kind of see the little mount just outside that middle window there. But I actually did have it set up. So I had a mic that was mounted out there so people could come pull it down and ask us questions while we were recording.
WWE style, like Ringmaster.
Yeah, dude, literally. And I even had the same, that Shure Super 55. So I was like, because I was like, that's the mic for it,
Yes.
And me and Jungle were like going through old mics. I was like, we get this one, we get this one. I was like, you know what? This Super 55 looks old.
Yeah.
It's pretty indestructible.
well, yeah.
Yeah, it's just like a basic cardioid mic that looks cool, right?
Yes.
And it was great. But then used it a couple times, and then really what we found is that like 12-year-olds were just gonna fucking break it.
Yeah.
So we're just like, maybe this isn't the best idea.
And you can't air 12-year-olds cursing.
No,
unless
I
you're Pat
could.
McAfee.
Yeah, exactly. That's
he's
all I do,
dude,
honestly.
he's incredible at that.
Who did we go to see? We were at some comedy show, and we literally, like, physically bumped into him. And then I honestly didn't recognize him visually. And then later we're walking by, and someone's like, "Do you guys know Pat?" And I was like, first off, who the fuck are you? And they're like, Pat McAfee. That was who you just. And you bump into somebody, and if you're not a piece of shit,
He's a
you're like,
typical-looking
"Oh my
dude."
god, I'm so sorry, dude." And they're
Yeah.
like, "Oh, it's no problem. Or I hope you enjoyed the shit." You have like one of those bullshit.
It's not like Steven Tyler wearing sandals and having web feet.
Yeah,
Like,
exactly.
It's pretty indistinguishable, like it's pretty regular guy shit to be having going on.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, listen, nobody really knew how fast of a swimmer Steven Tyler was, and now you've just revealed his secret.
One of my best buddies sent me a picture of Steven Tyler's feet the other day and says, "I bet you would suck these." I was like, the fact that this is what a relationship has come to is like you find a picture and you just try to find a way of making it gross and orient around me.
Welcome to the internet, dude. Yeah.
Friends are only good for so much,
It's true.
And I'm not going to reveal who this person was because he refuses to come on my show because all he says is awful shit to me.
See, I feel like that's the only show you should want to do.
It's so soft. I can't believe him.
I hate that.
Piece of shit.
For you. Yeah, he is a piece of shit.
You know
If
who
it's
you
he.
are.
Yeah.
Charlie?
I don't know who you are, but I think you're a piece of shit or whatever
Yeah.
Matt said.
I'm going to put the phone number of his business in the comments and you just hit him up.
Call him.
Yeah, I always call him.
Use all of the worst slurs you can think of.
Whoa.
I'm just kidding.
At the same time,
I don't know this person. Maybe it is. Maybe it's funnier than I
Yeah,
thought.
I think there's more things included in slurs that aren't really slurs, but like you can throw them around like that.
Every so often you hear a word and you're like, that feels like what I'm not supposed to say.
There could be a merch item that's like it's like got milk, but
Yeah. I do not have milk. Thank you for asking.
You tell me that fridge is empty. What's in there?
all milk, actually.
What if?
It just leads you to a dairy, actually. It's like one of those weird jungle portals.
Yeah.
Right now, not much. I actually think my fridge right now is kind of funny because I've been getting in all of these like THC soda samples.
Nice.
So obviously I love the Costello stuff that Urban Artifact's creating. And then you can see some of them. There's a brand called Levity. So that's like a big thing right now.
It's great that those are on the market. I think the gummies thing is just like it's overrated. That's not how a lot of people want to consume this.
I want to just smoke it like the old days. That's kind of where I'm at. I'm like, I don't know what it is.
Yeah.
Maybe that's like an addiction at this point.
No, there's the what do you call it? The oral fixation.
Oral fixation. Yeah, that's why I'm.
I felt that for a good while with the sobriety thing. I was going to cigars a lot, and I was smoking small cigars, and I found that I was smoking a lot of those. Like, I'd rather smoke one of these a month in a large enough amount where I'm like, I really don't want to smoke a cigar this week.
Sure.
Just like kick it. But I think when you're out and about and in a drinking crowd, it's like the weirdest thing for me right now is not having a glass in hand to participate in that.
So I got to send you with a not beer home.
Dude, exactly.
We don't carry this yet in the store yet, by the way, but I'm hoping we will.
Well, I think there's having the THC seltzers on hand. It's like different strokes for different folks. I mean, ketamine's going to be available in liquid form at some point in time. And
right.
That's going to be a very clear indicator of what's going on with that person.
I am so curious about all of that stuff because I'm like, bring on the psychedelics. Like, let's change some minds.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? I hate to
when
feel
Starbucks starts to have a mushroom coffee, that's when it's really on.
I don't think that's actually that far off. I don't think it'll be like obviously psilocybin coffee yet, but there's a lot of talk. I mean, I can probably say this. They don't pay me.
Yeah.
But I keep hearing things about that in a lot of the beverage world. So you'll find a lot of these like, they're slowly putting them in as like nootropics and all that stuff.
It's a superfood category.
Right.
It's like putting turmeric in a drink.
Exactly. And the thing is, I think you're going to start seeing a lot more of that. Like the big ones I keep hearing a lot about are like reishi mushrooms, turkey tail. And you've heard for a long time, lion's mane. That I feel like lion's mane had a good couple of years and now they're moving into these other categories.
Yeah.
So I'm seeing tinctures, I'm seeing beverages, and they're going to start showing up in all this stuff.
Yeah.
And then it's going to be like everything else. It's like CBD, right? CBD's been kind of around for like 10 years.
Yeah.
And that just kind of loosely got, the way I describe it is like all of the moms who would have called the cops on me if they caught me with a joint were the first adopters of the CBD drinks. And now those same Karens are the ones that like stop me in beer and wine like, do you have a recommendation on the THC? I'm like, yeah, you should have called the cops on me when I was 20.
Next thing you know, people are going to be heating up a can of a beverage with like a spoon and a lighter underneath of it, and you're like, this is starting to look an awful lot.
They're like, don't worry, it's from Coca-Cola.
It's going to be fun. Then the IPA companies will be
versus
like,
us.
we still need to be in the high percentage category, so let's make sure we knock them on their ass.
27%. It has to taste like cat piss. You know what I'm saying?
Guaranteed.
I'm like, notes of gooseberry. That's how they say that in the industry, for real.
Nodes.
If you hear, if you ever see gooseberry written on something, it might taste like pee, for real though. Isn't that crazy?
For folks that like to go that hard, it needs to not taste great. It's like liquor. It's like if the liquor tastes great, then we have a problem with what's going on here. They're drugging you.
Well, that's what I like about the THC sodas. I joked forever. I was like, man, put this in a Mountain Dew and it's going to ruin my life. But now it's like, I'm looking at a case of like cream soda over there with a little bit of weed in it. It's great.
I think the weirdest thing is that they're not allowing folks to smoke in the same place that you can smoke cigarettes. Like, why are smoking cigarettes? Like, smoking sections are still limited to folks that are using tobacco products.
Right.
And you're saying, like, you can only consume marijuana in your own home. It's like, people don't like to smoke inside. Did you ever know that?
Yeah, like 90% of smokers are in their car.
Yeah,
you know
exactly.
What I mean?
And so these folks want to be able to go to a park and enjoy themselves. You're not going to get secondhand from it. And you can't live in a world with that foul smells that you don't
like. But
like.
Also, you could smoke a cigarette in the park and nobody would give a shit. And I feel like that it's that same thing where I'm like, not saying that like weed doesn't smell or anything.
Yeah.
But I feel like they're pretty equal in potency. And in some regards, I do think cigarettes outclass them in the intensity.
Yeah.
And it lingers on your clothes.
Yeah.
All kinds of bad notes on there.
And I think it's not as different as people are giving it credit for. It's like, you're not going to put someone in jail for ripping ass in public. That smells way worse than weed does.
For sure, dude. Yeah. Oh, I just hate the smell. I'm like, yeah, I do hate the smell of asses in public.
Yeah, exactly.
You know?
And at the same time, like, what am I supposed to do about this from preventing the culture of people that you just legalized this thing for intentionally?
Right.
And now telling them to change how they consume it. It's like,
for sure.
You're just asking for a weird conundrum here.
I think a lot of it is like so many other things. It's always like a weird form, not even a weird form, but it's a control thing, right?
Yeah.
They're like, listen, fine, I relent. You can have an inch, but I'm going to take another mile.
Yes,
you know?
exactly.
Like,
but the only people that are allowed to manufacture are going to be our friends that we're invested in. Just so you know.
Yeah, that drives me crazy too.
That's the most weird.
I remember when they first tried to legalize it here, and then it got out that the Lachey's were involved, and I was just like, I'll never smoke weed again if Nick Lachey makes a cent.
Yes,
off this.
exactly. It's like boy bands can't be controlling the THC constants to this. Like, it's just
I'm sure they're lovely people, hopefully.
Yeah.
I don't know them. I feel like I have friends that know them. But, you know, now I'm like, oh, God, there's another clip.
Well, and for the first time in a very long time, we're seeing the antitrust thing come up with Live Nation. They're actually being taken to court about this kind of
Wild,
thing.
isn't it?
Yeah, and I think it's about fucking time.
Yeah.
And I think what you're trying to prevent there is folks that are already ahead getting too far ahead, because mobility doesn't exist when big business can just monopolize anything like that.
Absolutely.
And just pretend like they've diversified under shell companies. That's a crock of shit.
Oh, it is. It's absolutely.
Especially when that comes to concert venues.
Yeah.
Why are you going to monetize the art in a way that makes Oasis look bad? We know they got money. We know they're making money, but you don't need to dynamic price these concert tickets when at the end of the day, this is a nostalgic sell. Most people are going to watch online. Who gives a shit?
Right.
But thank God we have someone like Jack White that's like, no, it's going to be a $5 ticket. It's going to be at Bogarts. It's going to sell it really quick, and it's going to be way too loud. Deal with it.
Yeah.
It's kind of rock show you want to go to.
Exactly. And it's like one of those things. I'm not even a huge Jack White fan, but I like absolutely respect him for doing it that way, where I'm like, cool, your art doesn't have to speak to me, but like how you speak to us as an audience and a potential one. Yeah. I almost bought tickets to that show, even though they were expensive, and I didn't care, mostly because I was like, I love the way you're doing this, and I'm one of those, I'm an early adopter usually when it comes to technology, behaviors, all that sort of stuff. Yeah. And I think about, this is one of those times where I'm like, hey, this is a good way to shift it.
Yeah.
You know?
There's not many guys that have number one hits out there that aren't chasing number one hits like that. That's what people don't understand about when you put out your successes. What are the markers, whether it's monetarily or you want to chart in a certain way?
Sure.
It's not enough for people once they get there. They just want to keep scratching that itch. There's a guy that doesn't give a shit about scratching that itch in the first place. And that's why he got there, because it was a genuine pursuit of the art. It's one of the worst riffs he's ever read. Yeah. And at the same time, he's going to play at every show if he has to. And it's going to let it be that mailbox money, because it is.
Let's do it. Why not? You know, and that's one of those other things I think about with artists sometimes that always bum me out when they seem like they hate their hit songs. Yeah. And I'm just like, this is the house you built. Like, bro, live in it. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And then I guess I kind of understand it, but maybe it'll change for me one day if the rest of my life everyone's just like chili bath and like nothing else ever hits for them. But then there is that large part of me that does happen kind of already, and I'm like, you know what? While that's not the thing that I feel most proud of, I'm glad it connected with you.
Totally. And you got to beat it. That's the only option. And, and there's always room in the encore slot to do that kind of thing. And also, if you don't take the backlash, then deal with it. But Paul McCartney puts on a show of 3.5 hours of straight bangers, okay?
Right.
And it's not like he
and
isn't
no
still
pee
right
breaks either. At his age is impressive.
I'm sure he has a catheter.
I thought, you know what's funny is I've thought about that a couple times too, where I was like, bro, there's no way. Either that or you're just like not drinking.
It's wireless.
Severely dehydrated.
Yeah, you can Bluetooth the catheter these days, okay? They take it down to powder form, then Osmosis Jones, it's in your leg, it goes out the leg, into the back bag, then they rehydrate and they sell it at the merch table.
It's just all, there's just like cables running in it. Yeah. Baby, I'm amazed. And he's just letting it rip the whole time. Can you imagine that? Can you imagine being Paul McCartney and just singing songs like that and you're just mid-pee the whole time?
Dude, my favorite memes are Paul McCartney explodes in concert. All the Live and Let Die. Like that's beautiful. And the guy's still on top of the game, okay? Yeah, cool. I don't think there's no better rock star than Sir Paul.
So to go back full circle, the second Hall of Fame induction ceremony, he got inducted separately. I did not get to meet Paul McCartney, but I did get to meet his daughter, who had a shirt, phrase that you just said a few minutes ago, about fucking time. So as soon as you said that about Live Nation, I was like, no, I hope I get to tell this story. And then here we are.
Straight
Paul
bastards.
McCartney's peeing. That's how it got there. Yeah. From Gooseberries. But there's a lot of pee content today.
Well, you saying that reminds me that my bladder is suffering from the aftermath of this. So
sounds good. Well,
how long have we been doing this?
We're at an hour and 24 actually. So
okay, cool. Let's kill it before the SD cards run out.
That sounds good.
This is the wonderful Mark Borison. Really, thank you so much for letting us do this here. Let's kick it again sometime soon. But
I'll have you on too.
Check out the Jungle Gems podcast, everybody. Check out his comedy, whatever you're choosing to do.
You can follow me, Mark Borison, Borison. You can find me on all social platforms. I'm usually under at The Marketing. But if you just type my name in, actually, this is a fun one. If you Google me now, right? I show up like a famous person. It's pretty cool. Google sent me the email a few months back. They're like, hello, the email is very weird because it's like, you're relevant enough to not just be a list of links.
You did it, man. I mean, let that be one of the parameters of success that people didn't know that they were aiming for.
I didn't know. I was just like, oh shit, for real? And my dad loves it because he's tried to be like completely off the internet.
Yeah.
And early on, he hated it because it was like, they would look him up for like work opportunities. They just see some dipshit kid in Cincinnati.
Yeah. And they're like, do you know this guy? He's like, that's my son.
I think he'd probably be like, no, fuck that guy. Not in a mean way, but he would be like, protect the bag. Yeah, so always think about that. So anyway, yeah, follow me on those. Obviously, follow me in Jungle Gyms. We do TikTok, Instagram. I mean, all of those platforms. I love making short form content.
Yeah.
I would love to host one of your events if you need somebody to keep the party going.
You are a kick-ass MC. You do the job
franchise
well.
Viagra, dude. You know,
Dude, listen, I think we could put it in powder form. We could be doing lines. I got advertised a thing called the other day, Got a Bump. And it was
Really?
some kind of caffeine that you can store. And I'm like, is this really how this has to go? Like,
it's probably like movie cocaine where it's like powdered B12.
no, it's like the Delta 9 of cocaine, I'm sure. Where
Right.
it's
Well,
like,
it's like one
this is
molecule
yeah.
removed.
This is dehydrated Coca-Cola, okay? We're just going to let you snort it. Red Bull has their own brand, too.
You won't be like, I'm going to write a screenplay. You'll just be like, I'll write a TikTok about the Rizzler.
Dude.
The Rizzler, if you're watching this, I want you to come in here so bad.
Yes, yeah.
I'm the future of you, dude. This is what 35 years to you is going to do.
Between 40 and 70 people watch every single one of these programs. I'm sure he's one of them. So
I know,
please,
he is.
bring that ass. Friends, thank you for watching the Waters Weekly Wave. I love you, brother. Thanks for being here. It has been an absolute pleasure. And thank God you watched this, because someone else didn't, and they should feel bad about it. Peace and good things in the meantime, players.